Okay, so today we're going to discuss how we fill in the unit circle. I'm going to start with the degree measurements and kind of go around first. So we've got 0, we've got 30, 45. Here we're at 60, and then we're at 90. Um, we're at 120, 135, 150, and then now we're at 180, going around the circle. Um, Then from 180, we're going to be at 210, 225, and 240. This puts us at 270 here. Then as we go around, we're at 300, 315, 330, and then also along with this being 0, this is also 360. Okay, so there's our degree measurements. Let's go ahead and do our radians. Here we would be at 0 or at 2 pi. Here we're going to be at pi sixth, then pi fourths, and then pi thirds. Here we're at pi halves. We go around to 120, that's going to be 2 pi thirds. And then we've got 3 pi fourths. And we've got 5 pi sixths. Again, continuing to go around, this is going to be pi at 210. That's going to put us at 7 pi sixths. Here we're going to be at 5 pi fourths and 4 pi thirds. Here we're at 3 pi halves and going around to 300. Now we're going to be at 5 pi thirds. We're going to be at 7 pi fourths, and then at 330, 11 pi sixths. So just going around the circle, filling in the degrees and filling in the radians first. I'm going to start with the quadrantals. We've already talked about the quadrantals. So at 0 or at 360, we're at the point 1, 0. At 90, we are at 0, 1. At 180, we're at negative 1, 0. And at 270, we're at 0, negative 1. Now, I'm going to focus here just specifically right now on the first quadrant when filling this in. So we've got our quadrantals, but we've been utilizing our triangles. So think about if I were to sketch in a triangle here, you'll notice that's my 30, 60, 90 triangle. And as I go through that, initially, if I draw my triangle up here, 30, 60, 90, here's my 30, and we fill in our ratios. We know normally in our ratios this is 1, 2, and radical 3. Well, in this triangle, we know that the radius r is going to be 1 for all of the way around the circle. So this is 1, this is 1, this is 1, this is 1. Well, our radius in this triangle up here in our ratio is 2. We don't want it to be 2, we want it to be 1, so we're going to divide each of the sides by 2. Well, by doing that, that makes this side 1/2, this side radical 3 over 2, and now our radius is still 1. So if I were plotting this point here, I'm going over radical 3 over 2, and I'm going up 1/2. I'm going to do the same thing for the 45, 45, 90. Think about 45, 45, 90. My ratios are 1, 1, radical 2. Well, to make my radius 1, I've got to divide all of these by radical 2. So if I divide them by radical 2, 1 over radical 2 becomes radical 2 over 2. And that's both the x value and the y value there for the 45, 45, 90. If I do the 30, 60, 90, again, now I'm looking at this triangle, because here's my 60-degree angle. If I fill that in, I've got 1, 2, radical 3. Well, again, to make the radius 1, I've got to divide by 2. So my x value is going to be 1/2. My y value is going to be radical 3 over 2. Now, for the remaining quadrants, as I fill this in, the remaining quadrants, I can just use symmetry. So this, as I move over to the second quadrant, it's negative 1/2 radical 3 over 2. If I again move over here, I'm at negative radical 2 over 2, and then radical 2 over 2, because I'm going over and then up. For the next one, for 150, it's going to be negative radical 3 over 2, and then 1/2. So just notice I'm just changing my x values to be negative because I'm going left. Now when I get down here in the third quadrant, I'm going to be negative, negative. So for the first one, it's going to be negative radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. For the, as I come down, negative radical 2 over 2, negative radical 2 over 2. And as I fill in 240, 240 is going to be negative 1/2, negative radical 3 over 2. I move over into the fourth quadrant. Now, again, my x value is going to stay positive, so it's going to be 1/2, negative radical 3 over 2. Again, radical 2 over 2, negative radical 2 over 2, and then radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Again, just utilizing symmetry for each of those values that I'm filling in. Now, how do we utilize the unit circle? Before we get to that, let me just give you a real quick thing that can help you to memorize this. So if you think about the way this is set up each time, if you don't want to have to draw the triangle every time and do a little bit of memorization to help you, think about all of these are over 2. So if you start with this, okay, if you think about it like this, it's basically radical 1, radical 2, radical 3, radical 1, radical 2, radical 3. Now I know that radical 1 is 1, so it'd be 1/2, radical 1. But again, that gives you a real easy way. So radical 1, radical 2, radical 3, radical 1, radical 2, radical 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And again, they're over 2. So that helps you to kind of the memorization process. And then you can always use your symmetry to find the other values. But again, going back a little bit to what we talked about last week, if you remember, and I'm just going to take a sample one here. Let's say I wanted to find the sine of, let's say, pi fourths. The sine of pi fourths. Well, we know that sine is y over r. Well, at pi fourths, if I go back up here to pi fourths, well, here's my pi fourths value. Remember, y here is radical 2 over 2. The radius is 1, so radical 2 over 2 over 1 is just simply radical 2 over 2. So we could say the sine of pi fourths is radical 2 over 2. And again, that's just one scenario as to how we can utilize the unit circle. We're going to do some more examples of that and get into greater depth as the week goes along.